I was born, and I have to go on hearsay that this happened. However, what I do remember is going to a 50th anniversary for my grandparents and remembering that there were both older, because it was their 50th anniversary, older Black couples there, quite a few. And I remember one man coming up and talking to my family and saying, one Black man, and I think it's important here, "We like Mr. Woodson, because Mr. Woodson likes us." So my friends, that is my family tree. The interesting start in America as one of the first families, the somewhat humorous greeting about being a water bucket or a potato bin Woodson, the not so proud part about being slave owners, and the portion that means the most to me, my grandfather's way of life. He taught me that the Woodson name stands for being a gentle and loving person, a person that cares for others, regardless of background, because that's simply the right thing to do and the right kind of person to be. Thank you.
All right, good way to kick things off. Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. And like me, you got a lot of history out of that, right? So you learned a little bit here and there too. Were we able to get the photo? We're good to go. Okay, so your photo is actually going to be up there if you want to use it. So our next story is going to come from Jerry Peterson. It's his first time coming up and doing a story here. And so his story is called Remembering a 1960s Acquaintance. So if you would, please welcome Jerry Peterson to the stage tonight.
Well, I can assure Alex this is my first and last time. I can assure you that. At any rate, if, in case anybody here isn't aware of who Neil Gorsuch is, he is an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And I knew his father through being in the Army with him. And it goes back to, in the early 50s, I joined the Army Reserves. And they immediately put you into duty, but it's actually training. So they give you basic training, and then they give you another type of training. And then in the early 60s, so that, in other words, I was in for about 6 months, and then in the early 60s, President Kennedy called back some reserves because of the Berlin crisis. So I was sent to join an ambulance company. The ambulance company was from Burlington, Colorado, and attached to me and a bunch of other individuals was David Gorsuch, who was from Denver. He was a lawyer from Denver. That's Neil's father. Now, we were trained in Fort Carson, Colorado, and I didn't have much contact, no contact. I think I remember one phone call since that period back in the early 60s of being in the Army with David Gorsuch. I called him one time on the phone. I don't remember much about the conversation, but I did determine that Neil's father was actually the David Gorsuch that I knew, and there were a couple of prominent David Gorsuches in Colorado at the time. I would like to read a letter that I sent to Justice Gorsuch in 2017. Dear Justice Gorsuch, I am somewhat sure that the Dave Gorsuch I knew in the Army Reserves at Fort Carson, Colorado, was your father. He and a few others, including myself, were attached to a reserve company out of Burlington, Colorado. I had some contact or friendship with him. At that time, I had, through a photo competition, I had won a twin-lens medium format camera and took some photos of the men in the company processing black and white negatives, printing postcards in the darkroom on base, selling them to a few of the men. David was my best customer. I remember riding to Denver at least once on a weekend pass in his VW Bug, really slow going. As it went up the hills, it was very slow. I have printed a couple of photos of David that were taken and will send them to you if you are interested. So that was the letter that I sent, and about a month later, he replied, Dear Mr. Peterson, thank you for your letter and remembrances of my father. He was a wonderful man, and I am grateful for your support. That VW Bug sure did slow down on the hills. So that's all I heard from him. Nothing mentioned that he would want to see those pictures. So about a year passes, I just figured I wasn't going to send him the pictures. But instead, I sent the picture to a talk show host and political commentator, Bill Press. And Bill saw it and sent the pictures back to me saying that he thought that Neil would want to see it. So I did send the pictures to Neil. No response at all. Is it up there? Okay, that's the one. That's the one where he's smoking. And he was a smoker all his life. And in 2001, he died of lung cancer. And I kind of figured that cigarette struck him the wrong way, and he didn't want to. It bothered him. But it wasn't only his father that was a smoker, but his mother, the notorious Ann Gorsuch, had been a smoker too, reportedly with 2 packs of Marlboros a day. And she died in 2004 of cancer. But it hasn't been reported whether it was lung cancer or not. So that's my story.
What's really impressive about that story, what I think is so fascinating about it, is when Jerry was talking about that VW bug. So that's a VW bug he had when he was in the Army with David Gorsuch, and he still had it when Neil was a kid. So that tells you how long he kept that thing going. So thank you. Good job, Jerry. Well done, sir. All right, so our next one, and I just want to say real quick, what we always do after this is we have a little reception out afterwards, out there in the parlor area. So after it's all done, what I'll do is I'll dismiss the storytellers, and I'll tell you guys about the next storytelling event, which will be coming up next year. But we let them go out there, and then you guys can go out and talk to them and, talk to them about their story and what they had to say. So our next storyteller, she's been here before. She's going to do it again. It's Dawn Bruce, and I think you will see that she has some similarities with Jerry. They're talking about the military.
Hello, all. I did this before, however, I still have stage fright, so bear with me. So the name of my story is The Evolution of Her, and throughout my story, I'm going to refer to her a lot. So before I get there, I have to give you a preface of who her is. So her is basically an alter ego, like a defense mechanism, if you will. She rears her ugly head to sort of protect Dawn whenever she feels like Dawn, me, needs a little help or just a little nudge. If she feels like I'm getting worried or anxious or a little sad or just a little help, so to speak, she pops out and then she pops away. You don't really see her all the time, but just know she's always present, even when you don't see her. So my story began the spring of 1986, my senior year in high school. I was the top 10 in my class, and I was really nervous. I was scared because I was a teen mom with a 4-year-old, and I was top 10 in my class, and I was the first one in 3 generations who was about to graduate high school. So I felt like I had the world riding on my shoulders, and I wanted to do something with my life. I didn't want to be just a Zare employee. And for those of you who don't remember what Zares was, I see you shaking your head. It was a department store, and I was the head of the HBA department, the Health and Beauty department. And I wanted to do something else than just be a career Zare employee. So one day, we had a career fair at our school. It was a military career fair. And me, in my infinite wisdom, I went. And it was this smooth talking, oh, he was so good at what he did. He talked, and he talked, and he talked, and he said, you know what? If you join, you sign a dotted line, you will be able to have all of these great things. You will have a good job waiting for you. You'll be able to help your family. You'll have all of these good things waiting for you with your military experience when you get done. Everything is going to be great. I was like, oh, that sounds really good. Got to be something good for me. I started to get really excited about first one to graduate out of my family from high school, first one in the military to help my family, first one to get my family out of the hood with a military career. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Sign me up. All right. Summer's over. Graduation completed, time to get whisked off. Not so fast, though. I had to have another meeting with the recruiters. They say, oh yeah, we forgot to tell you something. I said, what? Well, you need to sign your son over. Well, I started to feel something. I didn't know what this feeling was. Her is slowly starting to form. we need to sign your son over. I said, why? Well, you're gonna be gone a long time, so we need to do that. I said, well, my mom can take care of my son without me signing him over. I don't understand. Well, no, we need to do this. Okay, why? Well, it's the military law. Here we go. Okay, let me think about this. Sign my son over. All right, Dawn, the bigger picture is you're gonna do this and it's gonna help your family. You're still gonna be the first to get your family out the hood. This is a good thing. All right, let's do it. Hey now, let's do it. Sign me up. I did it. Second installment of her. She's here, she's coming. So we do it. I sign guardianship over of my son to my mom. We're going on and going on. My next meeting with the recruiter, we're getting close to me getting ready to leave. I'm getting cold feet. So I wanted another meeting. I haven't signed on the dotted line to be sworn in yet. So I say, look, do I have to go in the gas chamber? Do I have to hold a rifle? Do I have to hold a gun? Do I have to get dirty? I'm a prissy girl. I don't want to get dirty. I don't want to do none of that stuff. I don't want to drive the big rigs. I don't want to do none of that stuff. All the answers to my questions, they saying, no, 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 you don't have to do none of that. I'm like, all right, great, let's get it, let's go. I sign on the dotted line. So once I sign on the dotted line, at this point, I only had my permit, so I needed to go get my driver's license. I get to the driver's license facility. I'm scared to drive. I didn't want no driver's license. All of my friends was driving me around. I had a car, but all my friends was driving me, so I didn't need a driver's license because they just drove me wherever I wanted to go. I get to the driver's license facility, and I'm not doing too good. So the teacher said, hey, why do you need your driver's license? I said, I'm leaving to go to basic training very soon, so I can only go if I have my driver's license. He was like, really? I'm a vet. You need this? Hey, here you go. So I really didn't get my driver's license. He gave it to me because he was a vet. I was like, all right. So he gave it to me. Fast forwarding. So now I'm getting sworn in, and my assignment is to go to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. 12 weeks of basic training. So we get there, and then I said, all right, I gotta pack. Third installment of her. The recruiters done sent me off again. They said, well, they said, I need you to pack like a bunch of civilian clothes, because on the weekends, it's party time. I, like a fool, packed a bunch of civilian clothes, because I'm thinking I'm getting ready to party. Not. I get there, I get off the bus. It was in the evening. A drill sergeant is this close to my face. And he said, oh, you from Chicago, you think you a gangster. And he hands me an M16 rifle. I said, whoa. My recruiter said, I don't have to touch a gun. Yeah, why did I say that? Here comes fourth installment of her, because my defense mechanisms need to go up. Why did I say that? He was in my face. Next day, I had to do cadence. Cadence is when we're marching and there's someone on the outside that has to sing whatever, tell you whatever you need to say when you're marching. I didn't like to use my voice, so I wouldn't say anything. My mouth would just be moving, but I'm not saying anything, so they noticed this. And so they're like, oh, you are now Private Chicago, so you are gonna step out here and do it. And this M16 is now your boyfriend. So on top of you not wanting to do anything else, you got a new boyfriend, M16, and you're gonna do cadence all the time. So I'm doing all of this that I don't wanna do. So I'm feeling really sad, I'm feeling really blue, because I feel like a fool, because the recruiters have sent me off and they told me all these things that was not true. And I had to do all of this stuff. fourth installment of her. So within the military, I'm starting to feel more sad and more sadness. Training, there's more training, more training, more training. But there was one glorious thing. Y'all guess what it is? Mail call is the best thing ever in the military. Best thing ever in the military. However, if you don't have mail call, it could be really, really sad, really, really blue. It's just like hell. So days pass, weeks pass. It's training, 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 and more training. And now we're down to weapons training. Well, I'm from the south side of Chicago, from Inglewood. So I don't want no parts of weapons. I grew up around weapons. I don't want to see weapons. I don't want to hear weapons. No parts of it. On top of that, my new boyfriend, I could disassemble him with my eyes closed at this point, but firing him was a whole different story. So every day, we're now going to the range for weapons training. This one particular day, I'm up to shoot. But every day prior to that, I'm having a meltdown. Every time we go to the range, I'm having a meltdown. I'm up, I get in my foxhole. The tower yells, ready, aim, fire. We all fire. I jump up out the foxhole. Side note, we're shooting live rounds. I jump up out the foxhole, I run down range with live rounds. The sergeant says, cease fire, cease fire, cease fire. Get that private off my range. Well, needless to say, I became the preacher's and the first sergeant's best friend, and I spent time in the military's version of the loading bin. Fourth sighting of her. The military considered me as being a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I consider myself as being hoodwinked because you hoodwinked me. So I had to go into survivor mode. So while they had me on what their version of suicide watch was, while me being in survivor mode, I said, watch this. I got my sharpshooter's badge. I propelled off walls. Sorry. I got my driver's license to drive 16 passenger buses, 25 passenger buses. I drove forklifts. I drove Humvees. I even drove a tank. That was the best part. I love that. I got my explosive card. So I can shoot grenade launchers. I can throw grenades. I jumped out of airplanes. I traveled around the world. I went to nursing school, and I met a world of exciting people. So her has inserted herself into me. I also held several jobs. I worked in the motor pool. I was a cook. I was first sergeant assistant. I worked in communications. I was an admin. I worked at the warehouse, and I have a ton of other jobs. I just can't even remember them all right now. So the military was not always good to me, but we did have a good love-hate relationship. So we got along pretty well most times. I served 20 years in the military between the Army and the Air Force. Those days was really, thank you. Those days was really good to me. It was some good days, it was some bad days, but those are days that I will always treasure. And it made me strong. It made me to embrace the her I have in me. I don't always like her, but I love the fact that she embraced in me the it is what it is attitude, and it helps me stand firm on my 2 feet. So I thank the military for helping her to stand on me and fully blossoming the her inside of me. I started out being very excited about my family moving out of the hood, but guess what? That never happened. But I did sign on a dotted line, so I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. I put my big girl panties on, and here I am today, a survivor of the military, and thus becoming her. I came, I conquered, I am her. Sincerely, Sergeant Dawn Bruce.
All right. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yep. We always strive, the stories that we tell here, one of the reasons, and I always like to go through the history of why we do this. We do this because we come to church on Sundays and we sit next to each other, and everybody has all of this history behind them. All these things that we never ask about, that we never know about. You can sit next to somebody for 15, 20 years and never know what's happening with them. And one of the reasons why we do this night is so that you can come to know each other a little bit better and you learn about these amazing things that people have done. So thank you for sharing that. We have one last story tonight, and it comes from Todd Smith. He was the first person to reach out to me, and he said to me, he goes, Alex, I got a story, but I don't know if it's, I don't know. Do you think I should tell it? And I was like, well, tell me what the story is. He called me and told me. I was like, oh, 100%, you need to tell this story. So why don't you welcome Todd up here? It's called A Cub Story.
I got a prop. So glad I found this. I actually couldn't find this for a while. It was making me very sad. Why is that not sticking? All right, well.
Yep. Is that enough?
All right, how's everyone doing tonight? So, we got any Cubs fans out here? Yeah. So if you can't tell, I'm a diehard. So this story goes back 18 years. Like if it would happen 18 years ago. So it's the summer of 2004. And earlier in the summer, my brother lives in Colorado. He lives up in the mountains of Colorado. And we were planning this trip to see the Cubs series against the Rockies in Denver. And so it was a group of like 8 people. It was going to be a guy's trip. We're going to go and watch the series and have a great time, stay in a hotel and have a great time. So we did exactly that, I guess the first game was on August 2nd. We went, the Cubs won. Everything's peachy. Before I went on this trip, I bought this flag, and as you can tell, it's got some. We'll get to that part. It doesn't look so nice right now. So we go to the second game the next day, and we win again. Cubs win again. It's a great trip, right? So we're going for the sweep. So it's August 4th, and this is where the story starts. August 4th, and we go to the game. I'm flashing my flag all over the stadium, running all over the stadium, having a great time with my friends, and we win again. We sweep. So we decided we need to go party, okay? So we went around the corner from the stadium and found this bar that had some ivy growing on bricks, kind of like Wrigley Field, and we felt like we were at home. So the group of us 8 guys, we camped out right by the ivy. I propped up this flag up on the ivy, and we claimed out this area. It was our area, okay, our little Cubs area. And so it's getting late, right? We're having a great time. Some music starts a little bit later inside, and I was just hanging out with some of the people out by the Ivy, just talking to some people. And all through the night, there's this guy that clearly a Rockies fan, right? That kept coming by and saying, "You got to take that flag down." I'm like, "No, I'm not taking the flag down." Then he kept threatening that he's going to steal the flag, and I'm like, "Dude, you're just talk. Go away. Just stop. Go away." And so then everything settled down, and we're just chilling out, and a lot of people were gone. It's pretty late. I think it was actually getting past midnight, and all of a sudden there was just me and a couple other guys by our table. All of a sudden, this guy comes streaking out of the corner. I see him out of the corner of my eye. He jumps up, grabs the flag, and darts out the alley. And I'm like, what? So as he was turning the corner, coming out of the alley, he slipped and fell. He slipped on like those you see him in Chicago, the air vents, okay? So he slipped on one of those, went down pretty hard, and I thought I was just going to catch him. But no, he popped up and took off. And this is one of the fastest people I've ever seen in my life. This guy, I'm sure he was in some marathons and winning marathons. This guy was really fast. So I get to the corner, and this is like a stoplight intersection, and he's a block away. I'm like, wow. I'm like, this guy's really fast, and my flag's gone. So there were these guys on the corner on these black Ninja motorcycles. You know what can you picture this? Okay, wearing all black helmet. And they're looking at me like, what's up with that guy? I'm like, he just stole my Cubs flag. He's like, all right, we got this. And I'm like, what? And I was just like you are, like amazed, like what's going on? Behind these three black Ninja motorcycles and the guys all dressed in black was a big black SUV. That vehicle's part of this crew. Like, what is going on? So the guys on the motorcycle take off in different direction. One guy goes on the sidewalk chasing after the guy with the flag. And I'm like stunned. I'm like, what is going on here? So the SUV takes off down an alley, like trying to cut him off. So I'm running. I'm like, what is going on? I turn the corner where he had just gone, and they've got the guy, but they're beating him up. And I'm like, what? So I'm running up. I'm like, what's going on? And he flashes a badge. It was a police. These were undercover police officers. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, why are you beating him up? He's like, well, he resisted. Over a flag? Like, this whole time, my brother's name is Sean. My brother's calling me on my little flip phone, right? And I'm not answering because I don't even know it's ringing because I'm so like wrapped up in what's going on here. Like, what? This is crazy. So the police officers they're putting handcuffs on him, right? They got handcuffs on him. The whole time he's complaining about his wrist. I just thought it was that the handcuffs were a little too tight. They put him in the back of the SUV. They told me to get in the front seat, and they're going to drive me back to the bar. We're going to drive all of us back to the bar. While I'm in the front seat, my brother calls again. I answer the phone. He's like, what's going on? Someone said someone stole your flag. And I'm like, yep, why don't you come outside the bar, and we're gonna be there in about 2 minutes, okay? So we get there. We're out in front of the bar in the parking lot, and the officers are, we're all standing around in kind of just, what do we do now? So one of the officers says to me, do you want to press charges? And I thought about this for a second. I'm like, where's my flag? Because I didn't see my flag anywhere. I didn't know where it was. and he's like, well, one of the bicycle officers already put it up back on the Ivy for you. And I was like, how did he know that? I never really found out how the officer knew that. But there it was. When we went back there, it was there. So I said, you know what? If I've got my flag, I don't need to press charges. This guy's an idiot, but I don't need to press charges, you know? My brother, who had already had a little bit to drink, said, no. You're either going to go to jail tonight, or you're going to come in and buy all of us top shelf tequila shots. And he's like, by the way, there's 8 of us. So that one of the officers said to him, you better take that deal, because it's going to cost you a lot more money to get out of jail tonight. So sure enough, they took the handcuffs off. He's still complaining about his wrist. And we get around him, we usher him back into the bar, and he gets out his wallet. He opens up his wallet, and there's nothing there. There's no money. And my brother, we all kind of noticed too, his wrist that he was complaining about, it was broken. He'd broken his wrist because it was all like bent out of shape. Like, okay. I was feeling a little sorry for this guy. Like he got beat up. My brother's relentless. He grabs the credit card out of the wallet. He's like, plastic, gives us the bartender, and we all indulged. So the moral of the story here is be nice to people, right? And don't take what's not yours. You never know who's watching. So are you curious what was up with the undercover cops? Okay, so I asked them, after we were done talking and we were getting ready to walk into the bar again, like, why were you guys even there? He's like, well, someone escaped jail, and there's people like us all over Denver right now looking for this person. He's like, we were bored. This looked fun. So that's my story.
See, we need more stories like that. That's a fun story. Yeah. So if you're a storyteller, can you please go on out into the parlor, and we're gonna give you guys a second to go out and do that, and then we'll go out there. I think that they usually have some type of treats out there that you can eat while you're talking to them. But this was a good night of storytelling. Maybe we should just keep doing. Maybe we should just be any story you want to tell, and then we'll just do that every time, right? I tried to do the last one. We did one at this time last year that was like, I thought it would be really fun to have like grandparents and grandchildren telling the same story, and that did not work because either one or the other of them didn't want to do it. Either the grandchild didn't want to do it or the grandparent, and so we could never make it work. That was the only one I've ever actually had to cancel. So sometimes coming up with a theme doesn't always turn out the best. But we do have another one that is going to be coming up, which is, I think it has to do with, I always tell myself, you need to look at the theme before you come up and say it at the end. But I think it has to do with kind of like, as a child, like kind of like the people who were, during our childhoods, like who was the person who really helped you through your childhood? I think that's what the theme is about. Like who was the person who guided you through your childhood? I could be wrong about that, but that's what I'm remembering. Anyways, it doesn't matter. You will forget because it's not till May anyway. So, you know, when we come back to it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what he said when we actually know what it is. But you're always welcome to tell stories. Anybody can do it. Anybody's welcome to come tell a story. The only thing that I require that you do is that you write it down ahead of time just so that I can read it, and we have to work on it a little bit. But I love having people tell stories because, again, you all have so many of them, and oftentimes you just hold on to them and you don't even realize how good they are, how amazing these stories are that you tell, and how they can just really enrich our lives. So I want to thank you again for being here, and if you can, please go out. Tell them thank you for getting up here. It's not easy to get up here and to tell your story like that. It is a hard thing to do. So I appreciate you all coming out and being part of it, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. See you next time.